Hey, Dave here. I thought we would do our video this way today, listening to some music. This is called Bach for Breakfast, and they put out a lot of cassettes this way. This is The Leisurely Way to Start Your Day. It's on the Phillips label. So anyway, I was going to do a top 10 of my albums that start with the letter S. As you can see, though, I pulled, way more than I should have. And but I'll show them here in a second. I also got up and made some jamming lemon zinger tea from Celestial Seasons. I really like this tea. It's good hot or cold, but usually I like to make it cold for the warmer months and for it that way. This is a recent piece of artwork I made just for my own amusement. It's kind of like one of those 3D pieces. It's, multi-leveled. I think there's like 3 levels to it. Like this down here is cardboard. That's cardboard too, and I carved out a little place there. And this here is foam core, what they call foam core, which is what they make, posters and whatnot for. Here's another little piece I did that it's just construction paper. But anyway, on to albums. And yeah, I thought I'd just do it like this. It's maybe a little bit easier. This is for the letter S. And this is Camel's Snow Goose. It's taken from the novel of the same name. Kind of a conceptual album too. And the Snow Goose is, taken from a novel about a little girl that finds an injured goose and takes it to this guy that works in a lighthouse. And the guy nurses it back to health, and he also befriends the little girl. And as you can see from all the titles, like the Great Marsh, this is the little girl's name right here. No, that's the guy's name. He was also a hunchback in the story, and this is the little girl's name, Fritha. And, it talks about their friendship. And later on, he goes to Dunkirk to help out the war effort. And, over time, their friendship, blooms. And, but he goes away to war to help in this war effort. And the snow geese, of course, they migrate back and forth, and they come back and forth to, that area. And the little girl always remembers him that way. But, yeah, the snow goose. Jethro Tull's Stand Up. And it's got the little cutout pop-up thing in it. With this album, it's much like their first album. It's a combination of progressive, jazz, and classical. The most popular song on here that I think they're noted for is that one called Bach's Beret, if I'm saying that correctly, which is this song here, the third one. But of course they, modernize it and jazz it up with the flute and whatnot. And yeah, I've always liked this album quite a bit. They have a new guitarist on that album. I think his name is Martin Barr. He replaces Mick Abrams that went on to form Blodwyn Pig, I believe is the name of the band, but yeah, Stand Up by Jethro Tull. The Byrds, Sweetheart of the Rodeo. You know, it's kind of a pivotal album in a lot of ways. You know, I know Jeff Calico Silver was talking about transitional albums, although this was kind of more country, and I wasn't expecting it. You know, I was familiar with the Byrds' earlier stuff, their folk rock stuff. And this one was almost pure country, and I didn't quite like it right away, but I've grown to really, for it being, you know, maybe one of my favorite Byrd albums. And after this album, supposedly I read that Roger McGuinn was the only member of the Byrds after that. So, and it has Graham Parsons on it. And, you know, Johnny Harford plays banjo on here. And several other musicians. Bob Dylan's self-portrait. I didn't like this album either when I first got it, but over the years I've really grown to enjoy it. 2-record set, gatefold, and you know, it has members of the band on here. You know, and a lot of other musicians you can see along the side there. He does a cover of The Mighty Quinn on here. It starts out with a really good song, All the Tired Horses. You know, Early Morning Rain. But he does a version of Like a Rolling Stone on here. But yeah, real interesting Bob Dylan album. This might be my favorite Little Feat album. I remember well buying it in Austin at a place that is no longer there. It used to be a record shop across the street from the university, and it was called Intersanctum. And the guy was playing it, you know, as I walked in, and of course was wondering what it was. But you know, neat cover by Neon Park that is a gatefold. It's got the song Willin' on it, which a lot of people have covered. And just a lot of, it's kind of more rough cut than some of their later albums, although I like some of those too. But yeah, Texas Rose Cafe is a song on here, which kind of this album reminds me of Texas in a lot of ways. But it's got the song Willin' on it, and you know, just overall a neat rock and roll album. Boogie Woogie and little bluesy. This is Sean Phillips' second contribution, which is he was a kind of a folk singer-songwriter artist. And this is his second album, and I still really like it a lot. He plays 12-string guitar, and kind of hard to pigeonhole because his music was a little more than just straight folk. But he played with Donovan, and supposedly he says, or I read where he co-wrote Season of the Witch. He's also played with Traffic. And this album is also really orchestrated quite a bit by a Paul Buckmeister. But yeah, it's like orchestrated. It's got folk. It starts out on a really neat song that's just a cappella, or starts out a cappella and then the music comes in. But yeah, you can hear, you know, if interested, you can hear this album on YouTube, parts of it or all of it. So yeah. Genesis, Selling England by the Pound. Not much needs to be said about this. This is still the Peter Gabriel era. I believe it's their 5th or 6th album, something like that. And one of my favorite albums. I've always really liked the painted cover on it. And kind of songs that are political in some ways. Yeah, also has references to nursery rhymes and stuff like that in it, and you know, very classical, progressively inspired. Van Morrison St. Dominic preview. This middle period for me is my favorite Morrison era. It's got redwood trees on it, and Listen to the Lion, which is a long cut, and Jackie Wilson Said. All of these, all the songs on this album flow really well, and I really like it. Brewer and Shipley, Shake Off the Demons. Kind of a soft rock folk duo. And while I'm mentioning folk, I actually saw a pretty decent folk documentary on YouTube last night. And it was about the folk revival, or, the beginnings of folk there in New York City. And it's free to watch, but you have to watch it with ads. But it was a pretty interesting documentary, and told how folk eventually went to singer-songwriter, I guess is more like it's known today. But, if you're interested, I'll leave a link in it below my video. Anyway, with Brewer and Shipley, I had a roommate that bought this album, and I liked it a lot. It's got the song One Toke Over the Line, which was banned on a lot of radio stations due to the marijuana reference. But yeah, it's still a pretty neat album. I like it a lot. It's, got a song here, Rock Me on the Water by Jackson Browne. It's got the lyrics inside here. Just a real pleasant album all the way through, and very reminiscent of that era for me. This is a Dan Hicks Hot Licks. Striking it rich, and as you can tell, maybe it's looks like a big matchbook. And the cover comes up like this, and there they are inside. Kind of a lot of influences from swing music to jazz. Some blues is in there. Also very reminiscent of Austin to me, because there was a guy that used to live across the alleyway from me that was really into this band, and I had another friend that lived there in Austin and was also really into Dan Hicks. And I believe one of these two female singers in the band, Marianne Price, I believe is her name, used to live there in Austin for a while, so they kind of had a little bit of a reputation. But yeah, kind of a die cut cover thing, inside. Got a kind of a neat little insert, place a dime here. But yeah. Now here's some runners-up that I won't talk much about. This is John Hiatt's Slow Turning. Really neat John Hiatt album. Has a song Paper Thin on there, and Drive South. Slow Turning had three kind of hit songs on it. John Hiatt, I think, kind of started out in the new wave era, and I wasn't following them. I really didn't start following him until he started doing his singer-songwriter stuff, kind of more acoustic electric stuff. But he really did turn into a really good songwriter. There he is on the back. This is The Cure's 17 Seconds, and I still listen to The Cure every so often. They kind of started out as kind of a doomy, gothic punk band in a lot of ways. And then as their career went on, they kind of turned into a, kind of a more poppy type band with Love Cats and all that type thing. But I always loved this cover here, it being kind of atmospheric and, gloomy, I guess. They're on the back. I love how they're also kind of fuzzy looking, or out of focus, I guess you could say. But yeah, this is a pretty neat little album. Very atmospheric. John Martin, So Far, So Good. This is really a kind of a best of album by him. It's also a gatefold like that. British folk singer. But yeah, really interesting album by him. He's made a lot of good albums. So yeah, if you're into British folk, he's a good one to look up. This is Subterranean Modern, which is I like the Gary Panter cover. That was part of my reason for picking it up. And or maybe it's, let's see, maybe it's just referred to as Subterranean, but it has 4 bands on it. And yeah, Subterranean Modern. There's 4 bands on it, and they were each, I guess at the time they were on the Ralph label, and they each do their own version of I Left My Heart in San Francisco. You have the Residents, MX80 Sound. Down at the bottom over here, you have Chrome, which kind of look a little bit like A Clockwork Orange there, and Tuxedo Moon. And so they all do their version of I Left My Heart in San Francisco. The same one that the version I'm familiar with is Tony Bennett. Although I think maybe Frank Sinatra also did a version of that. Maybe they all do pretty well, and then they just do, you know, they add some more of their own songs on here, kind of, you know, it's a way to introduce the band to to people that don't know them. But I guess my favorite, they're all pretty good, but you know, I guess the ones I kind of like the best is the way Chrome did that version, kind of they're all kind of new wave punk, that type thing. Stratosphere by Tangerine Dream. This follows Rubicon, and it's much in the same way. Still got the classic lineup as far as I'm concerned, with Christopher Franke, Edgar Froese, and Peter Baumann. The guitar is a little bit more prominent on this album, but yeah, if you're like Tangerine Dream electronic music, it's a good one. This is Martin Carthy's Sweet Wivelsfield on Rounder Records. He came out of a folk band, and I don't remember if that was Fairport Convention or some other one, but he's a folk singer, and pretty decent. I really prefer if he came out of Fairport Convention, I prefer some of their other albums, but this one I really haven't listened to all that much. So this is, like I said, it's Martin Carthy's Sweet Wivelsfield. What a title. Tongue twister. Simple Pleasures by Bobby McFerrin. This has a song on it, Drive My Car, and I remember it fondly because me and my brother both flew to San Francisco then while that was a hit. And it's also got this, he does some really interesting covers, like Cream's, let's see, I thought there was a Cream, Sunshine of Your Love. He does Susie Q. And of course, it's, if you're familiar with Bobby McFerrin, it's all a cappella, and he overdubs on it to kind of create layers and stuff. But it does a song like Don't Worry, Be Happy, Good Lovin', and some other covers with some other familiar songs on it, and pretty neat album. This is the last one, Graham Parker, Squeezing Out Sparks. One of his better albums. I mean, although I do like a couple of his other earlier albums that he did with Brisley Schwartz, and he's on here too, which I guess Brisley Schwartz used to be kind of a pub rock, kind of a blues rock band, and this sort of is in that mode too. Yeah, really interesting Graham Parker album. If you're into the new wave, kind of pub rock, that type thing, it's real interesting. Here's another one by Jesse Colin Young. This one's called Song for Julie. Another singer-songwriter, folk musician. It has this song on it called Ridgetop, which I've always liked, and some other songs on here. I used to play in the Youngbloods, which is where I first heard about him. And so, yeah, wrapping it up here with Jesse Colin Young's Songs for Julie. And I think that's going to do it. It's really beautiful out there today. So I'm fixing to go outside and enjoy some sunshine. And, hope everybody's doing well today. Whatever it is, enjoy some music. Talk to you later.